Around November 1899, in the early days of the Boer War, Winston Churchill, then just 25 years old, was not a soldier, but a young, ambitious war correspondent for Britain's Morning Post. He was aboard an armored train, a mobile fortress of steel and steam rolling through the arid grasslands of Natal, South Africa. Accompanying him was his friend Captain Aylmer Haldane and British soldiers. Though a non-combatant, Churchill carried a Mauser pistol, believing it necessary for self-defense. Suddenly, the train's whistle blared. An eerie silence fell, followed by the crack of Boer rifles and the boom of their pom-pom guns. The train slammed into a pile of rocks deliberately placed on the tracks by Boer forces and derailed. Instead of seeking cover, Churchill acted like a soldier. He took command, rallying the troops to free the locomotive and clear the wreckage. Despite their efforts, they failed. As Boer soldiers closed in, Churchill discarded his pistol in the engine to avoid being seen as a combatant. Nevertheless, he was captured. Churchill was taken to the State Model School in Pretoria, a school repurposed as a prison. There he was held with other British officers enjoying minor privileges. Yet his freedom was stripped away. Haunted by the British Army's defeats during Black Week, Churchill burned with a desire to escape captivity and return to the front to fight. Despite repeated pleas for release as a journalist, Louis de Souza, the Transvaal Secretary of State for War, refused. Churchill's fame made him a high-value prisoner, and the Boers were determined to keep him. Unwilling to accept his fate, Churchill began plotting his escape. Initially, he devised a reckless and impractical plan: fashion dumbbells from mattresses, overpower the guards, and seize Pretoria. Fortunately, saner fellow prisoners rejected this scheme. Instead, Captain Haldane and Sergeant Major Brocky proposed a simpler, more feasible plan escape by scaling the prison's back fence near the latrine block after dinner. Churchill eagerly agreed and persuaded them to include him, despite their concerns that his fame and talkativeness could jeopardize the plan. The trio planned to escape on December 11th, but a guard's sudden appearance forced them to postpone. On the night of December 12th, unable to wait any longer, Churchill acted boldly. While Brocky hesitated in the latrine block, Churchill approached. The fence saw a guard turn away and seized the moment. This decision thrust him onto a solitary, perilous path, one that would shape his life forever. On the night of December 12, 1899, darkness cloaked the dimly lit prison yard near the latrine block. Despite agreeing to wait for his comrades, Churchill's impatience overpowered his caution. Spotting a guard turning away, he acted without hesitation. With a single leap, he scaled the fence and hid behind sparse bushes outside the prison. This move plunged him into a dangerous predicament, alone without support. He waited there for over an hour, hoping Captain Haldane and Sergeant Major Brocky would join him. They never did. An anxious Haldane whispered through the fence, urging Churchill to return, but Churchill refused. To go back was impossible, he said. Fate pointed me onward. Despite his friend's pleas, Churchill stood firm, believing this was his only chance, and he wouldn't let it slip away. Meanwhile, Haldane's attempt to follow was thwarted by a guard, leaving Churchill entirely on his own. With no map compass or food, save a few chocolate bars and a biscuit, Churchill embarked on a treacherous 300-mile journey to Portuguese East Africa, Mozambique. Heart-pounding, Churchill began his journey through the dark streets of Pretoria, the Boer capital. Moving like a shadow, he evaded patrols. Hearing a train, he found railway tracks and followed them. He climbed onto a moving goods train and hid in an empty boxcar. Noticing the rising sun, he realized the train was heading east, the direction he needed. Before dawn, to avoid detection at the next station, he jumped off. As the sun rose on December 13th, Churchill's absence was discovered when a barber arrived to cut his hair. This sparked outrage among the Boers, who launched a massive manhunt. A warrant was issued offering a large reward for his capture, dead or alive. Pretoria was locked down and all trains ceased running at night, stranding Churchill deeper in enemy territory. Yet even knowing he was the target of a large-scale hunt, he resolved to press forward. Churchill's journey continued in exhaustion and hunger. He had escaped for over 2 days, but the unfamiliar terrain and fear of recapture wore him down. One evening, seeking help, he spotted flickering lights in the distance. Hoping it was an African kraal, he approached only to realize it was a Boer colliery. Despite the danger, desperation drove him to knock on a house door. Miraculously, the occupant was John Howard, an English mine manager. Recognizing Churchill and aware of the manhunt, Howard risked his life to help. He fed Churchill and hid him in a dark, damp mine shaft filled with coal and rats for 3 days. This was a risky decision, but it saved Churchill's life and became one of the most memorable details of his escape. After 3 days, Howard devised a daring plan to get Churchill to safety. He arranged for Churchill to hide in a coal wagon bound for Lourenço Marques, now Maputo, in Portuguese East Africa. From December 19th to 22nd, Churchill endured a harrowing journey buried under sacks of coal, suffering stifling heat and dust. When the wagon reached the Portuguese border, Churchill breathed a sigh of relief. He arrived at the British consulate in Lourenço Marques on December 22nd. Initially looking filthy and exhausted, he was turned away. Only after bathing and changing clothes was he recognized. Immediately armed Britons escorted him to prevent recapture by Boers who had trailed him to the border. In late December 1899, Churchill boarded a ship and returned to Durban, South Africa. There he was welcomed as a national hero. Crowds cheered, the press lauded him, and he delivered a stirring speech recounting his dramatic escape. The hardship and danger of his journey faded, replaced by fame and admiration. This escape not only secured his freedom, but transformed him into a symbol of courage and resilience. It paved the way for his political career, setting him on the path to becoming a towering historical figure. After his historic escape, Winston Churchill did not return to England to bask in glory. Instead, he chose to return to the front, proving he was more than a fame-seeking journalist. In June 1900, just months after his daring escape, Churchill returned to South Africa as a lieutenant in the South African Light Horse. This time, he wasn't just chasing stories, but seeking battlefield honors. Under General Redvers Buller's command, Churchill joined the campaign to retake Pretoria. Upon entering the city, one of his first tasks was to revisit his former prison, the State Model School. With pride and emotion, Churchill witnessed the liberation of his former comrades. He reunited with his friends Captain Aylmer Haldane and Sergeant Major Brocky, who had been recaptured shortly after his escape. Now Churchill stood outside armed as their liberator. This moment was not just a military victory, but a vindication of his ideals. For his battlefield contributions, Churchill earned 6 clasps to his Queen's South Africa Medal, solidifying his military reputation and proving his bravery as a soldier. Churchill's return from South Africa turned him into a celebrity and launched his political career. Though once seen as arrogant and reckless, his escape proved his courage and resilience. Just a year later, in 1901, Churchill won a seat in the British Parliament. His subsequent life was a roller coaster of triumphs and setbacks, but it ultimately led him to greatness. He served as Chancellor of the Exchequer and played a key role in World War I. Yet it was in 1940, as Britain faced collapse under Nazi Germany's onslaught, that Churchill truly shone. As Prime Minister, he displayed unwavering resolve, leading Britain through World War II with iconic speeches and an indomitable spirit. The legacy of his 1899 escape endures. In Estcourt, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, a roadside plaque marks the site of his capture. It's not just a historical landmark, but a reminder of one of the 20th century's greatest stories of overcoming adversity. Churchill's escape forged him, transforming a young, ambitious man into a leader of historical stature. Winston Churchill's daring escape from Pretoria was more than a bid for freedom, it was the crucible that forged a legend. From a young medal hunter to Britain's steadfast wartime leader, his journey reminds us that courage in the face of adversity can shape history. Churchill's story is not just a page of history, but a lesson in courage, resilience, and how one individual can change the course of history. It offers inspiration not only for the past, but for our lives today. If you're passionate about epic historical stories, eager to explore pivotal moments, and want to understand how they shape the world, join us. Hit the subscribe button to stay updated on new videos where we bring historical tales to life with unique and inspiring perspectives.